Hey guys, what's going on? Steve Collins here, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be discussing how to improve your anaerobic conditioning, specifically for the Hyrox games. Now, I'm going to share with you two methods to do so. And at the end, I'm going to give you an absolute gem that's going to absolutely blow your mind when it comes to developing this anaerobic system. Anaerobic conditioning is essential for Hyrox because the competition involves high intensity, short duration exercises performed repeatedly in quick succession. So by training and developing your anaerobic conditioning, you'll be able to generate power, sustain performance, recover more efficiently, and build a more resilient mindset and mental toughness so that you can get through the Hyrox competition. On a previous video, I shared 3 different ways to improve your aerobic conditioning. And if you haven't watched that, you can find it somewhere up here. But if you haven't, a quick little summary on why developing your aerobic conditioning before working on this anaerobic conditioning is so important. And it's important because it serves you as a base. It will give you a foundation to build the anaerobic side. In sports science, we say, the wider the base, the bigger the peak. You can imagine that at that base level, that's your aerobic system. And the bigger that aerobic system, the greater the peak. And that's your anaerobic side of things. If you can develop your aerobic conditioning before working on your anaerobic conditioning, you're gonna teach the body how to efficiently deliver oxygen to the muscles being trained, which will ultimately allow you to recover better and recover better during those anaerobic efforts. It will also help you in between training days to recover and replenish energy and not make you as sore. So I'm going to share with you 2 anaerobic conditioning methods that can help you in preparation for your Hyrox competition, and that will greatly enhance your ability to tackle the competition and be the best athlete you can be and compete. Your anaerobic system is made up in 2 parts, the alactic part and the lactic part. Now, it's way more capable of producing greater levels of power than the aerobic system, but it comes at a cost. More power, higher levels of power equal faster fatigue. So it's way less sustainable. But if you train it smartly, we can learn how to sustain your efforts and produce greater efforts all at once. So before we get into the 2 methods, really important that we break down these 2 principles first. They have to be applied with any type of anaerobic conditioning that you choose to target. Number 1, intensity and effort should always be above 90%, okay? So that's between 90 to 100% of effort and intensity. If you aren't working above that 90%, you aren't truly targeting the anaerobic system. And number 2, this is all about quality of work. Forget about the quantity, it's all about quality of work. If you cannot sustain a certain power and a certain output for over a given time, you need to stop and you need to rest. Now lastly, this anaerobic system, this anaerobic conditioning is really hard work. And it's not easy, but it is very effective. So let's get into it. So first up, we have the alactic interval method, specifically targeting the anaerobic alactic system, otherwise known as the ATP-PC system. Now, it's actually probably the most difficult to train from an adaptation perspective because there's a massive genetic component to it. And that's because power is very determined by the central nervous system's ability and how much muscle fibers of fast twitch muscle fibers you actually have. But it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be trained. And that's especially true for people who have a very good level of aerobic endurance. So marathon runners, triathletes, ultramarathon runners. If you aren't used to doing strength and power training, this is definitely a system that you need to dip into to expose your body to. And actually, for anyone who is from those backgrounds and has begun weight training, as you develop higher levels of strength and your ability to exert force goes up, you then need to learn how to transfer this new found strength and power and apply it into your conditioning. And this is where this method comes in. So the goal of this method is to increase the rate and capacity of lactic energy production. And we're going to do this by using intervals, maximal intervals of 90 to 100% intensity effort, and work between 3 to 6 seconds of time. You'll then take a 60 to 120 second break. And you'll do these over 10 to 20 sets. And that's quite a big range there, but that will depend on your level of conditioning, your level of force and power production, your training age, and other variables such as that. Now, I prefer my Hyrox athletes to extend this work period from 3 to 6 seconds up to 5 to 12 seconds. And that's because, generally speaking, I don't mean to be mean, but the normal Hyrox athlete isn't the greatest strength and power athlete. They're usually coming from an aerobic level or a general gym goer level. So their ability to produce power in 6 seconds and under is quite low. So generally, you tap that power system out after 8. However, with these aerobic-based individuals, they probably tap out at that 8, 9, 10 second mark, which is why I extend that time period up. Now, of course, this will vary person to person, but that's one of the reasons why, working with me, we do testing. So you generally want to use exercises that have a strength and power and repetitive movement to them. So for Hyrox athletes, that could be burpees, it could be broad jumps, it could be sled pushes, sled drags as well. Remember that you have to work as hard as you can and pretty much just go all out in terms of pace, intensity, and effort. Actually, one of my personal favorites to use is hill sprints. Now, a cool little tip for this method is that as you approach your competition is to start introducing active rest periods. Now, you may do a power bout of say 8 to 10 seconds of work with burpee broad jumps, and then you may take a minute to recover, but that recovery is going to be 60 seconds of maybe farmer carries or a light jog. What you want to make sure you do though in that active recovery is that you aren't working and taxing the body too much. So you want to keep the intensity low enough to recover, but keep moving. So in the past, I worked with a Hyrox athlete who absolutely sucked at burpee broad jumps. So what we did 90 days out is we broke the burpee broad jump into 2 separate areas. We did a broad jump early on in the week, and then we did the burpee at the back end of the week to develop her anaerobic power with those specific exercises. Now, over those 60 days, 90 days, her aerobic level also increased. And then as we got closer to the competition, we then did the burpee broad jump, combined the 2 exercises, and then we just built her anaerobic power with that combo. And she absolutely smashed her Hyrox race, and the burpee broad jumps was easy for her. So the second method is the lactic interval method. Now, this method is all about increasing lactic energy production and anaerobic endurance. The idea is to work between 30 to 40 seconds and then take 1 to 4 minutes to recover. You may do anywhere between 2 to 5 sets and repeat that once or twice. Again, very much like that first method we did, you want to choose explosive strength and power movements. So for Hyrox athletes, again, sled pushes, burpee broad jumps, wall balls, sprints. Actually, for my Hyrox athletes that I like to work with, I really love to use this method with them on the ski erg, on the rower, on the bike, and with running, so that they can build that capacity of power. Again, we want to make sure that we're working above 90% up to 100, and we pretty much want to be going all out. Now, here's the cool little tip when it comes to developing this anaerobic conditioning. Now, both of these methods can be further broken down into capacity and power. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, both of them have a very strong correlation to each other. Secondly, the power side of things is the exertion, the amount of exert that you can put into one bout, whereas the capacity side is how long you can produce that bout for. That makes total sense. It's in the name, right? Power, capacity. So depending on your qualities as an athlete and as an individual, you may want to target specific areas of the power and capacity. I know personally, I'm really good on the air dyne. I can produce that power within 3 to 5 seconds. However, the capacity side of that, I have a massive drop off. So I may need to improve the capacity side of my power on the air dyne. Whereas on the rower, I can't produce as much power, but I can maintain a decent level of power. So I have a good level of capacity with my power, but I cannot produce high amounts of power. So I would have to work on the anaerobic power side of things over there. There's just a few ideas for you guys to think about if you want to get more deep and technical into developing your anaerobic conditioning. But guys, if you are trying to improve your anaerobic conditioning, just remember these 2 things. The first one is that you have to work above 90% of intensity and effort, okay? So anywhere between 90 to 100% of intensity. And number two, if you want to target the power side of things, you need to rest longer. And if you want to improve the capacity side and target that endurance side of your power, you need to rest a little bit longer. This is all about quality, not quantity. But what you guys need to focus on remembering is that there are a few principles that you need to stick to. The first one is that in order for you to develop your anaerobic system, it's all about working above 90%. Okay, so between 90% to 100% of intensity and effort produced. And number two, if you want to target the power side of things, you need to take longer rest periods. And if you want to target the endurance and capacity side of things, you need to take a slightly longer rest periods. Regardless of which one you want to target, anaerobic training isn't just about fatigue and blowing. It's all about quality of work. Guys, if you have any questions about anaerobic conditioning or any of the methods discussed today, please drop your questions in the comment section below. Like the video, share the video, please subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date with any future videos and content. If anyone would like to train with me, please drop me an email here. I offer highly individualized programming, which is all about smart training, simple nutrition, and creating a resilient mindset so that you can become the best version of you. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen. See you on the next one.